budaya, salam kebajikan, rahayu. Yang saya hormati Profesor Dr. Alwi Shihab, guru saya, Bapak Matius Ho, Ambassador Alfred, Bapak Tio Sambuaga, Bapak Dahana Putra, Mr. Iqbal Akhtar, Mr. Brad Scarf, dan tentunya Imam Besar Masjid Istiqlal. Excellencies, participants, and speakers. I'm so honored to be invited in this important gathering and warmly welcome to all of you. My gratitude to our civil society organization and media partners for their contribution to this significant conference. Special appreciation goes to the Lamina Institute, the driving force behind this event. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, today, the quest for peace remains both urgent and elusive because our global landscape is very complex. Most concerning are more open conflicts claiming more lives worldwide, from the war in Ukraine to the situation in Afghanistan and Palestine, questioning the existence of solidarity and humanity. In Gaza alone, more than 37,000 people killed. Most of them are women and children. All atrocities must be stopped. Human and humanity should be put as top #1 priority. Colleagues, resolving this conflict requires conflicting parties to have a willingness to engage in constructive dialogue. But this willingness does not fall from the sky. We must pursue it. Political leaders bear this responsibility, but so do all elements of society, particularly religious leaders. These conflicts are not inherently religious, but religious elements are often present intensifying tensions. Therefore, understanding diverse faith becomes crucial, an endeavor we must always nurture. Freedom of its religion must be legally guaranteed. Diversity must be respected. And do not let our religious differences create fanaticism and cause tensions. This is why Indonesia actively works with the international community for 3 agendas. First and foremost, strengthening tolerance. In the absence of this, social polarization might escalate into tension or even open conflict. Our region, ASEAN, is not immune to this.
Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, puji syukur kami persembahkan kepada-Mu karena kami diberikan kesempatan untuk menyelenggarakan kegiatan konferensi yang sangat penting. Tiada lain datang kami semuanya kecuali memohon agar acara ini Engkau berikan kelancaran, kesuksesan, dan pada akhirnya kami bisa merealisasikan pemikiran-pemikiran cerdas para hamba yang menghadiri konferensi ini. Ya Tuhan, inilah kami semua para hamba datang dari berbagai daerah dan negara, berusaha untuk menghimpun berbagai pemikiran dan upaya meningkatkan kualitas dan martabat kemanusiaan kami sebagaimana yang Engkau tuntut pada kami. Bahwa we affirm our prizes and gratitude to you for this morning we are able to hold this conference. Our only hope is to ask that you grant smoothness and success to this event, and ultimately may we realize the intelligent thought of your servants attending this conference. Oh God, here we all are, your servant, coming from various regions and countries, striving together, they first wrote in an effort to enhance the quality and dignity of our humanity as we demand of us. Ya Tuhan, yang Maha Bijaksana, ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya pandai mensyukuri nikmat-Mu, tetapi juga pandai bersabar terhadap cobaan. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya mampu bersikap ikhlas, tetapi juga mampu bersikap istiqamah di dalam menjalani kehidupan. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya bisa bersikap kritis, tetapi juga bisa bersikap santun. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya berani melakukan kebenaran, tetapi juga takut melakukan pelanggaran. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya pandai melihat kelemahan orang lain, tetapi juga pandai melihat kelemahan diri sendiri. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya mampu berbicara banyak, tetapi juga mampu berbuat banyak. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya mampu memahami fenomena yang zahir, tetapi juga memahami fenomena yang batin. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya mampu mengetahui apa yang diamalkannya, tetapi juga mengamalkan apa yang diketahui. Ajarilah hamba-Mu agar bukan hanya bisa menjadi pemimpin yang bijak, tetapi juga mampu menjadi rakyat yang santun. Ajarilah hamba-Mu bukan hanya bagaimana menjadi orang baik, tetapi juga bagaimana mempersiapkan generasi masa depan yang lebih baik. Oh Lord, most wise, teach your servant not only to be grateful for your blessing, but also to be patient in the face of your trials. Teach your servant not only to be sincere, but also to remain steadfast in living our lives. Teach your servant not only to be critical, but also to be courteous.
The Republic of Indonesia, in particular Her Excellency Foreign Minister Marsudi, for hosting this conference with us. I also want to thank the Ministry of Law and Human Rights of the Republic of Indonesia, the International Center for Law and Religion Studies at Brigham Young University, Law School, and the Templeton Religion Trust for supporting this event. Distinguished guests, allow me to continue in Bahasa Indonesia. Saya juga ingin menyapa secara khusus para pimpinan dari sekitar 30 lebih lembaga mitra program literasi keagamaan lintas budaya, serta beberapa guru alumni program ini yang hadir pada kesempatan ini. Terima kasih atas dukungan dan kerjasamanya selama ini. Semoga kesempatan yang langka ini dapat kita manfaatkan untuk semakin memperkuat silaturahmi serta bertukar pikiran lintas lembaga, lintas daerah, bahkan lintas negara untuk berkreasi dan berinovasi dalam kerjasama lintas agama dan budaya untuk mengatasi berbagai permasalahan lokal dan global. Kita tentunya berterima kasih sekali lagi atas dukungan pemerintah Republik Indonesia, dalam hal ini Kementerian Luar Negeri dan Kementerian Hukum dan HAM melalui program literasi keagamaan lintas budaya ini. Semoga acara ini bermanfaat bagi kita semua, bagi bangsa dan dunia. Terima kasih.
Ladies and gentlemen, we strive to mark the start of the International Conference on Cross-Cultural Religious Literacy. Thank you, Excellency, and please be seated. We can invite you to please be seated.
Highlights the importance of this gathering and the importance of multi-faith collaborations in an inclusive society. I also congratulate Matthias Ho, Executive Director of the Lemina Institute, and his formidable team for their important role in our gathering. And thanks to the Ministry of Law and Human Rights of the Republic of Indonesia for their support. Thanks also to the other supporting partner, the Templeton Religion Trust. And of course, thanks to the speakers who have gathered from near and far, and for everyone who has come to listen and participate. I'd like to reflect briefly on the components of the title for our gathering, because each is very important, and each has been carefully chosen. First, we gather to discuss cross-cultural religious literacy, which is not just a slogan, but a comprehensive and tested mechanism for promoting greater understanding and appreciation for our faith traditions, both in their shared aspirations and in their particularity. CCRL has become an important Indonesian contribution to the fields of interfaith dialogue and cooperation. Indeed, it has become one of the most admired and, I hope, imitated models of building and sustaining inclusive societies in the world today. Second, today's gathering is an international conference, not just because the participant list is global in nature, but because we believe the topic and approaches are genuinely international. Our hope is that the influence of this conference will reach beyond national borders. Third, the conference title speaks of multi-faith collaborations, which is distinct from interfaith dialogue, in that it is not a search just for common ground, but a way of seeing each other as human beings endowed with dignity and worth, which becomes a basis not just for talking with each other, but for working together on projects aimed to promote the common good. Our center, the International Center for Law and Religion Studies, will be co-sponsoring a conference at Oxford University later this month on interfaith collaborations that will feature Indonesia's cross-cultural religious literacy programs. We hope to promote and amplify the message of CCRL. Fourth, and finally, we speak of
Matthias and the Lenin Institute for the excellent work that they have done over the years and that's coming to fruition today. Thank you for having us. I bring you the greetings on behalf of my colleagues at the Templeton Religion Trust. We wish to thank our hosts, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia and the Lenin Institute for convening this gathering and inviting us to participate. We're honored to join the Ministry of Law, Human Rights of the Republic of Indonesia, the International Center for Law and Religious Studies at Brigham Law University Law School as supporting partners in this effort to facilitate a conversation between leaders and scholars from Southeast Asia and other parts of the world to explore novel ways of engaging religious diversity to build inclusive and cohesive societies. We congratulate the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Lenin Institute, and 30 institutional partners in the cross-cultural religious literacy program in Indonesia that has trained more than 8,000 teachers in less than 3 years. An astounding response.
Indah Nuria Savitri to be the moderator for the first session that we have in this wonderful international conference. Again, of course, Excellency, distinguished participants, I will be moderating in Bahasa Indonesia and English, a little bit of mix between this and that, because I believe that will be benefiting many of our panelists this morning dan juga para peserta kita hari ini. Baiklah, Ibu Bapak semua, pagi ini kita akan sama-sama berdiskusi. We are going to discuss further on the important roles of cross-cultural interfaith dialogue as well as multi-faith cooperation in the global citizenship in this global world. As you can see, we have outstanding panelists this morning, and I think I can please welcome another big round of applause for our panelists coming from different parts of the world with, of course, impressive portfolios and CV to sit down, discuss, and share perspectives, comments, best practices that have been taken in various roles that all of our panelists have played in ensuring that cross-cultural and interreligious literacy as well as multi-faith cooperations are connected. As you know, in this very sadly increasingly polarized world amidst the never-ending conflicts that we are facing, there are so many daunting challenges that we face when it comes to pursuing peace and harmony among the societies. Needless to say, the ongoing conflicts as
Yesterday, we were able to visit some of the local civil society initiatives, such as the Kampung Moderasi, and of course also talk about global challenges, the importance of including religious leaders and women. So it has been a very interesting time here. I think one of the important things that my task force Dialogue of Cultures works on is we are very much a fan of best practices. So you see here today in batik, because of course for the climate this is the best thing to wear. So we're happy to learn from each other and adopt the best ideas. Now, our task force was created 17 years ago, and we recognized at the time of its creation that the growing importance of identity, religion, and culture in increasingly antagonistic discourses on complex global issues required special instruments and a more tailored approach. By breaking down stereotypes and prejudices and building trust, dialogue can significantly contribute to international confidence building, conflict resolution, and peacekeeping. With a proactive approach, using intercultural and interreligious dialogue instruments in our multi-track diplomacy, and favoring dialogues that include both state and non-state representatives, we engage in civil society and include, of course, religious and belief communities and religious leaders, and so promote cross-boundary and multidisciplinary networking of those groups and individuals. We thereby contribute to promoting global citizenship, which I will define here as individuals seeing themselves as members of multiple, diverse, local and non-local networks rather than as single actors affecting isolated societies. Now, this concept of global citizenship also supports the peaceful resolution of conflicts. To quote the former US Ambassador at Large for Religious Freedom and one of the founding fathers of the International Religious Freedom of Belief Alliance, Sam Brownback, many peacemaking efforts have failed because they didn't consider the religious implications of their initiatives. It is therefore crucial for us to develop religious literacy and expertise on religion and diplomacy, to right-size the importance of religion, and engage and involve constructive religious leaders and civil society initiatives. As Rabbi David Rosen has been saying for a long time, if you do not want religion to be part of the problem, you have to make religion part of the solution. With our dialogue,
holding conferences like this in the ongoing work day in and day out. I'm one of a small cohort of Jewish leaders who are here at this conference. So let me just begin with a word about my own faith tradition, Judaism, which in believing there are universal qualities that all human beings share: human equality, human dignity, freedom of choice, all flowing from Judaism's understanding of what it meant that humanity was created in the image of the divine, as it says in the Hebrew scriptures. That there are a number of conclusions that directly are relevant to our agenda that we're discussing here. Foremost was the Jewish tradition's conclusion that there was not only one path to God, to salvation, to heaven. Early on, the Jewish tradition argued
and can be resistant to change, making it difficult for individuals to accept differing viewpoints. Such conditions are often caused by long-standing historical conflicts and grievances which leave deep scar and fostering enduring mistrust and animosities among religious groups. Fundamental theological disagreement can create friction, as religious doctrine often contains elements that assert the superiority or exclusivity of one faith over the other. the presence of radical extremist factions within any religious community can amplify intolerance and incite violence, making peaceful coexistence more challenging, if not unlikely. Furthermore, persistent stereotypes and prejudices, and often perpetuated by media and social narratives, can hinder.
Guru harus memahami ini. Elit agama, organisasi keagamaan harus memahami ini. Karena itu adalah kesepakatan internasional. Kemudian di situ ada 3 dokumen PBB yang sangat penting tahun 2011, kemudian diperbarui tahun 2023, dan kemudian ada juga tahun 2015. Intinya apa? Intinya semua dokumen itu dari internal Muslim maupun internasional PBB, UNESCO termasuk, ada 3. Pertama, pendidikan.
Thanks to the Institute, we have had so many good encounters, especially with the teachers and the alumni of this wonderful program, where we got to exchange our expertise in the education field, especially when it comes to interfaith and multi-faith work with the teachers. So hopefully we can continue to talk about this collaboration where the exchange of experiences across cultures between countries like Jordan and Indonesia, where we have so much in common, but also some cultural differences, was really enriching, at least for me. Education should engender open minds and hearts and nurture a benevolent attitude towards all. We all should have the right to receive a sound education, respectful of others and of the planet where we live. Such education excludes extremism, fanatism, marginalization of the different other, mostly. With the most impressive advances in science
education. But one of the most difficult issues, and it's something that we often refer to as a wicked problem, a very difficult problem in thinking about the questions of education, religion, values, culture, etc. How do we deal with that as a society in our education systems? And how do we think about the main topic of the discussion today as religious literacy? So clearly this is a problem that societies all over the world are grappling with, and it is the focus of this conference because we see in Indonesia a willingness to engage in the wicked problem and some examples that have worldwide application on the global agendas of the courage and the determination to address some of these very difficult questions and issues. So I'll start with 3 very quick stories.
Sebagai bangsa yang maju, masyarakat Indonesia terbiasa hidup dalam keberagaman dan juga perbedaan. Namun, masyarakat kita tetap mampu menjaga harmoni, toleransi, kerjasama, dan solidaritas. Terjaganya kedamaian di Indonesia salah satunya karena masyarakat kita selalu menempatkan agama sebagai landasan spiritual, moral untuk membangun tatanan kehidupan yang berkeadilan, untuk membangun kedamaian, keadilan, dan juga kehidupan yang lebih bermaslahat. Bagi masyarakat, agama dijadikan sebagai sumber inspirasi dalam membangun harmoni sosial, memperkuat integrasi nasional, bukan menempatkan agama sebagai sumber konflik dan perpecahan. Dalam rangka mengoptimalkan modal sosial berbasiskan pada nilai agama yang telah dimiliki oleh masyarakat, pemerintah selalu berupaya untuk menjaga dan merawat semangat kebangsaan.
Yang durasi 2021 sampai 2025 ini ada 4 adresatnya. Pertama terkait anak, perempuan, masyarakat adat, dan juga Ya, satu lagi ya. Jadi disable ya. Jadi ada 4 hal dan di sana pun juga ada suatu kewajiban dari masing-masing kota dan provinsi melaksanakan HAM dan setiap tahunnya kami pun juga melaporkan kepada Presiden terkait pelaksanaan HAM.
Harkat kemanusiaan. Ibu sekalian, ketika kita membicarakan 2 hal ini, maka sesungguhnya ada 2 hal yang ingin saya garis bawahi. Yang pertama adalah mengapa kita harus punya atau mengapa kita harus mengangkat konsep tentang human dignity atau harkat kemanusiaan di saat kita sebetulnya mempunyai sebuah mekanisme atau dunia sudah mempunyai mekanisme hak asasi manusia dan di dalam preambelnya itu sendiri sebetulnya harkat kemanusiaan sudah ada di dalamnya. Tentu ini ada 2 hal yang ingin saya garis bawahi. Yang pertama adalah tentu saja pertahanan saya atau upaya saya untuk mempertahankan hak asasi manusia. Pertama karena saya tidak ingin kehilangan profesorship saya tentang hak asasi manusia.
Emerged from the crucible of 2 world wars. The defining motivation was the desire that never again would the world fall into global conflict of the type that it had twice already in the 20th century. Today, 75 years later, it's interesting to think about what human rights looked like 75 years ago, what they look like today, and what they might look like 75 years from now.
Asia before. So I'm currently serving in the U.S. Department of State's Office of International Religious Freedom, and I'd like to share a bit about our work that we do, and also offer some insights on the value of the work that you all do. Our office's mission is to advocate for the freedom of religion or belief around the world, and we do this by promoting inclusive societies. Human dignity is a common ground. Our office's mandate and approach to this is through a rights-based approach. The mission of our office is a core American value, and we take it very seriously. As we stand for the protection of freedom of religion or belief for everyone, everywhere. But we don't just safeguard this because it is our constitutional duty and the core mandate of our office, but we safeguard this because the State Department also views this as a national security imperative. We strengthen our national security.
Tidak ada konstitusi kita, tapi kemudian tidak berkembang. Kalau berkembang barangkali pada saat hari ini kita punya yang namanya Komnas HAM, tetapi kita tidak punya yang namanya Komnas Martabat Manusia. Itu pada angka nasional. Level ASEAN, kita punya ASEAN Intergovernmental untuk HAM, tapi kita tidak punya ASEAN Intergovernmental untuk Human Dignity. Pada level internasional juga sama, kita punya Dewan HAM, tapi kita tidak punya Dewan Human Dignity atau Dewan Martabat Manusia. Nah, menurut pandangan saya, Ibu dan Bapak, kembali sesuai dengan temanya, yang perlu kita kedepankan dalam membangun kesadaran bahwa human dignity adalah equal footing dengan human rights berdasarkan KHR. Pertama adalah harus dibangun yang namanya national and global urgencies and priorities. Jadi pada tingkat tataran nasional harus ada urgensi bahwa kita perlu mengedepankan moral and ethics dalam konsep human dignity.